All right, so we are ready to get started talking about feedback strategies for instructional coaches. I do want to take just a second to introduce myself because you might be thinking, well, who the heck is this person that is going to tell me about instructional coaching strategies? My name is Allison Dowda. I have been an instructional coach. I'm going into my 8th year now as an instructional coach in Northeast Tennessee, and I work at a high school. And so I was an elementary teacher for 11 years before that. So it was a bit of a shift switching to the high school world. Talk about that number 3 answer of coaching teachers that you've never taught their content area before. I, as an elementary teacher, was, coaching chemistry and biology and calculus teachers. So definitely outside of 3rd grade math where I was right before coaching. You can see my husband there and we just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary. So we got married when I was 7. We're going to stick with that as our story. But we like to go on adventures together, go travel together, and spend time with our 2 dogs, which you can see there. Thank you. Thank you. And we both love to create resources for classroom teachers. My husband is also an educator, which is very nice. And I definitely have friends who envy that at times, somebody who understands your teaching world and teaching life and all things education. So very, very lucky to have that. I am a complete and total nerd for all things education related. Like I have the teacher nerd t-shirt from Cult of Pedagogy and everything. I'm always reading and learning and attending trainings to implement best practices in classrooms and working with the teachers that I serve. And I say that I serve because I feel like coaching is very much a service to teachers, and you really have to have a heart for it. And I do. I am genuinely passionate about using my experiences to improve teacher coaching and student learning. And along the way, I've gotten to pick up some great little nuggets. And that's part of what I want to share with you all is just through some of the things that I have learned through study, but also experience. And I'll be sharing some experiences with you tonight. I just want to pass those things along because coaching is tough. You don't really get a lot of training for it, and it's just its own little adventure. So that's what I am excited to share with you guys. And if you are looking for resources for coaching things, I will point out I have a channel on TikTok. My handle is @Instructional Coaching. I have a YouTube channel and a store on Teachers Pay Teachers called A Double Dose of Dowda. And I have a blog where I've been adding more and more resources for instructional coaches. It's instructionalcoachingstrategies.com can get you there, or a doubledoseofdowda.com. So if you want to follow me on any of those platforms, I would love to stay connected with you outside of just today. Couple of little housekeeping things too is terms of use. You absolutely may take notes and screenshots of anything that I share with you guys tonight for personal use. You can also access a replay I'm going to share of this video. I think tomorrow is when I'm scheduled to share that. And you can replay that link as much as you want to. But I do ask that you please not share or post this content somewhere else, including screenshots or your own presentation notes or just any included resources or anything like that. I do ask that you just keep that here within this group for tonight. But I will share the link, and you can absolutely share the link with as many people as you want. So I want to take you on a little time hop. We're going to go back in time about 7 years ago. I was a new coach to my new building. Role had just, not to say it had just been invented, but it was a new start for this role at the school where I was, a new district for me, all things new. And I was visiting classrooms and going through kind of the beginning of the year, getting to know people and just establish myself and establishing trust with them. And I entered a classroom and I was thrilled because the teacher, when I came in, she said, "Oh my gosh, I love feedback. Please just give me feedback from your visit today." And I was about to say ladies. I want to make sure. I think we're all ladies here. So ladies, I was just over the moon excited. Here I was this new coach, and this was a young teacher, and I just felt like I had so much knowledge that I was going to be able to, offer and to share, and this was going to be my chance to do it. So I watched this lesson where students were working independently on writing essays, and a lot of students were doing fine. They were, just plugging right along, but there were 4 or 5 students who were clearly struggling, didn't know what they were doing, where to start, anything like that. So immediately after the lesson, I shared my noticing with the teacher and suggested that she try pulling some students into a small group, and and maybe she could support them with providing them a little extra structure, maybe a scaffolded outline for what was expected for the essay. I was so pleased with myself and for my suggestions because they seemed to me very obvious and very practical. And I'm sure that I threw in some other things as well, just to help her. And personally, too, I think a little selfishly, I wanted to make sure that in this new role, I was coming off as someone who knew their stuff. Like I had something to offer these high school teachers, even though I came from an elementary background. Like I kind of wanted to prove myself. Not to brag, but I was feeling pretty good about my assessment of things and, just how I think all of this was going. And this is live footage, I think, of real-time footage of how I thought things were going. And then this was kind of the reality. This is how it went. The teacher was personally offended at my noticings and my suggestions. And she didn't come like right out and say these things to me, but she was just so very tense. She was uncomfortable. She was obviously not going to implement any of my ideas or anything that I had to share. So my takeaway from that interaction was where she told me, "I love feedback." I thought, this teacher does not love feedback. She loves praise, and that's what she wants. Have any of you guys who have been coaches before pop in the chat there? Has anyone experienced such an occasion with teachers? I was bothered about this for several days. Yes, I'm seeing. Yes, you know this feeling, and it's not a good one. I was like sick for days, just feeling bad. I made every attempt to go back and just kind of reconcile with the teacher right away. I went back and apologized, and I told her, you know what, I just don't like where we left things, and I feel so bad. I don't feel like I should have come in and offered suggestions, and went through the whole thing. Told her how great she was as a teacher, which, just side note, have in your back pocket as a coach, teachers love to hear just that you think that they're doing a good job at their jobs. So that went a long way, but told her I wanted us to be able to start fresh. And I have to tell you, that encounter with that teacher, it cost me her trust. And it literally took me years to build that trust back with her, to earn it back. And I genuinely did not understand what I did wrong until 2 things happened later on. The very first thing that happened was, ironically, I was leading a professional development about feedback. I was leading it to a group of teachers, and I have to say it was a powerful session. I feel like it was well executed and well received by teachers. But I challenged them as teachers to consider what feedback really is. Like, to start off the session that I did, let's consider what feedback really is, and challenge myself and them to get a clear definition of what it means. Here's the definition that I shared with them in this meeting, and here were kind of some of the things that I took away about feedback in this. So, very first thing is that feedback is just in time, just from me information delivered when and where it can do the most good. And this is from Susan Brookhart in her book, How to Give Effective Feedback to Your Students. So a few little takeaways from this, and if you have your handout, this is where I've got a spot for you to start filling in some blanks there, is parts of feedback. First, it is specific. Second, it is personalized for the person that you are giving the feedback to. And third, it is timely. Now, I know you guys are instructional coaches. You know, kind of this definition of coaching, or this definition of feedback when you're giving it to students. Looking back at this, I feel like in that encounter that I had, I still stand by, like, I think that I did give specific, personalized, and timely feedback to this particular teacher. So maybe I'm feeling good about myself there. But the definition continues. Supplying a correct answer for an incorrect answer does not count. That's kind of what I did. It should prompt students to seek more information, reconsider their approach or reasoning, or point out a path to pursue. So those are kind of those next big points. Is we need to make sure that feedback is something that prompts thinking, curiosity, and reflection. And let me tell you, I did not prompt that teacher at all. I went in and I assessed the lesson. I identified a problem. I gave a solution. And it hurts my heart still a little bit to think that I robbed that teacher of doing any thinking, having any curiosity, having any self-reflection, any of those things. So not so hot on that one, right? And then the last part of this definition is that feedback should put the learner in the driver's seat of his or her own learning. We need to make sure that the feedback that we give teachers is putting them in the driver's seat. And I kind of laughed to myself. I did not put the teacher in this driver's seat. I all but tied her up and put her in the trunk and like drove her to where I thought that we should be going. So this was, thank you for laughing at that, Judy. That's a very just honest, I don't know, telling of what happened, I think. So this was my first piece of learning about feedback. And again, I point out, it's not lost on me that ironically, I was teaching a session about feedback and I had not done a good job in that situation. So that was the first piece of learning that came after that not so great activity with the teacher. The second came when I was doing a book study with a group of high school teachers, because again, I'm nerdy. I want to learn along with the teachers, and I didn't come with a high school background. So just a piece of encouragement: read, do as much as you can, and give yourself lots of grace as you're learning things. But remember, you're working with professionals too. So I was doing this book study with some English teachers, and the book itself is 180 Days. It's Kelly Gallagher and Penny Kittle. They are a big deal in the high school English world. I myself had never heard of them as an elementary person, but it was just a great book study that I was doing with these teachers. And there's a point where Kelly Gallagher is talking about his peer writing groups that he does with students, one of the strategies he uses with his students. And in this case, the students each share a copy of their writing with each person in their little peer group. And at the top of the paper, they have to write one of three words. They have to either write bless, address, or press. Those are the three words. And this idea, I'm going to tell you more about it. This changed the way that I give feedback to teachers when I'm coaching. And this is really like the meat of what I want to talk to you guys about today. And it really just makes me so excited. This idea of bless, address, and press. So for bless, if a student wrote bless on their paper, then that meant that they wanted their peers to just give them some praise. They wanted some positive reinforcement of what they were doing. They were just really needing a win. So when I think about this for teachers, bless, sometimes teachers just want to be blessed. Sometimes they just want a little praise or a pat on the back. Think for yourself as a teacher, how many times did you just wish somebody was noticing something good that you did in your classroom? And maybe they didn't always do that. They weren't always so generous with giving that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting a little praise or a pat on the back. There's also nothing wrong with celebrating a win. This was a big shift for me. I realized, perhaps for the first time, and maybe it's my personality type, and I'm pretty hard on myself in general, but it clicked for me that feedback does not have to be critical. It does not have to be pointing out a flaw or an error. Feedback is just repeating back what you see, right? And so if you're seeing great things, then absolutely repeat that back to the teacher and give them that blessing, give them that praise. One area, whenever I'm giving teachers feedback and blessing them, you want to be really specific, right? Like, you don't just want to say, "Oh, you did such a good job," or "Oh, you're such a great teacher." I have found it helpful if I can pull from the evaluation rubric. So in my state, there's an evaluation rubric available online, and that's what the teachers are getting evaluated on by their administrators who evaluate them. And so if I can pull some information from that evaluation rubric, I just think that that's so powerful for them to get to hear that feedback. And sometimes that helps me choose kind of the look fors and the praise that I can give them that I know is going to be important and invaluable for them. And then lastly, another resource. I feel like I just throw resources at coaches all the time. I hope you're into that. There's some work being done by Mike Rutherford, and it's not new work. I guess it's been around for, I don't know, at least 10 years. And it's called The Artisan Teacher. And so he has gone through and he has developed a list of, it's about 28 characteristics, I think, and different things, different kind of categories where teachers can excel and they can do things really well. And so I keep a list of that nearby in my office so that I can pull that from that as a resource, because sometimes you just want to be able to give a teacher some really specific feedback on something that they are especially talented in, and they may not realize everybody else doesn't have that same talent or gift that they do. So that's where you can pull from that evaluation rubric or that resource, The Artisan Teacher. He has an online list of things that you don't have to necessarily have the book and go through all of that. So for me, realizing that, okay, where I said that teacher doesn't love feedback, she just loved praise. Well, praise is a form of feedback, and that's what she was needing from me. And so that is the first type of feedback in this bless, address, impress that I wanted to share with you guys. So the second thing that students could write at the top of their paper is address. So the idea for address is if a student wrote the word address on their paper, they also had to write a particular part of their writing that they wanted addressed. So maybe they were struggling with their thesis statement. Maybe they wanted to know if their counterclaim was, strong enough for what was being required of the writing, or maybe they needed help pulling together their conclusion. Whatever it was, if there was something in particular that they wanted addressed by their peers, they had to identify it themselves. And I thought, well, my goodness, that is completely brilliant and makes a whole lot of sense, right? In this case, whenever you're observing a teacher, you have them address what is the look for that you want, or that they want for you to look for things. That can be partially, maybe it's an area that maybe they recognize it's an area that they're weak in their classroom. Sometimes that's something that they'll do. Maybe it's an area that they are curious about. Maybe it's questioning. Maybe they didn't get scored as well on questioning in their evaluation. And so they want to really understand what that can look like to be successful in that in a classroom evaluation. And so maybe that's something they're interested in or curious about. Or maybe it's something that they've been practicing. Maybe it's something even as part of a coaching cycle or work that you have done with them, and they want to get your feedback. Just, okay, I've kind of been iterating through this. I'm practicing this. I want to get feedback on how I can continue to grow and improve in this. Those are fantastic, right? The biggest thing with addressing is that you want the teacher picking out whatever it is. And then my last note about addressing things is whenever you're having that reflection meeting with the teachers afterwards, and you're reflecting on this practice or on whatever it was that was addressed, I just like to remind people, ask them questions about how they prepared for that part of the lesson. So let's just say, for instance, that you had the teacher request for you to observe student engagement during the lesson. You can go in and you can observe and you can collect data and all that good stuff. But when you're having that reflection meeting, or even beforehand, if you know that that's what they're going to do, you might ask them to just talk to me about how you prepared for this. If you know that student engagement is what you are interested in and wanting to grow in, let's just have a conversation about how you prepared for that. What were your thoughts going into this? Really kind of ask them to take the lead and have them tell you the story of whatever it is and why they chose it. So the last area, there was bless, there's address, and then the last one is press. So the idea of press, if students wrote that at the top of their papers that they wanted feedback on, then that just meant we are wide open. Give me feedback on anything that you think would help me to be better. Anything that you think that I am missing, that I'm not seeing myself, or knowledge that you have that you can press me and just take me to another level. It's kind of that +1 coaching, if you've ever heard that term before. I personally only recommend press for your high-flying teachers. Now, I guarantee you, whenever you first start using this bless, address, and press strategy, because I share this with teachers, like before I come in, as soon as they ask me for feedback on a lesson, before I go into the classroom, I will explain bless, address, and press to them. And I will ask them, okay, which of these are you most interested in? And I'll tell you, probably 8 out of 10 people will say, oh, I want you to press me. I just want you to, give me whatever feedback you can. Now, I am very quick to shy away from that, because you never know if you were walking into that situation, like I said, where I went in with the first teacher and, asked what she wanted feedback on. And well, I didn't ask what she wanted feedback on, but I feel like if I had, she would have said, oh, I'll just take feedback on anything. And I would have done this press thing. And that's not the place to start with a teacher. So I just stress, I recommend doing this with high flying teachers. Secondly, again, much like the bless, rely on that evaluation rubric. Look at those components and see, are there areas, not that you yourself are giving the evaluation, but it can be really helpful, because if your state is like my state, that evaluation rubric is tough. Like for me as a teacher, I could never do all of those things in every lesson. It's just not set up to be that way, right? So that might be an area to press them, is to pick out some of those things. Some of the areas that I pick out, especially if I'm working with high-flying teachers, questioning or thinking, those are 2 different areas on our state's rubric. And I keep talking about my state's rubric, by the way. If you wanted to search Tennessee Teacher Evaluation Rubric, you can find the General Educator Rubric and you'll see all of these things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with going and looking at how other states evaluate and using those as tools for yourself to help give ideas. But it's a very thorough rubric, so I can pull things like that. Another area, because sometimes it can be daunting when a really great teacher asks you to come in and give feedback on something and wants you to press them. So many teachers are just, you might have a situation where so many of them are doing all the things, like they're just killing it. But one area that I find that I can press teachers is peer-to-peer feedback. That can be a game changer in a classroom. If instead of just the teacher being the one to give feedback to students, what structures are in place for peers to give one another feedback? Are there accountable talk strategies that have already been in place? Are they, just elevating those skills and giving students the opportunity to kind of be in the driver's seat and help guide one another? For me, that's just always an area that teachers can grow and that they can improve. And I'll just say selfishly too, that leads to a lot of fun work for me, working with teachers, coming up with strategies and things like that. I just really enjoy those things. And then lastly, this is something that I don't know if other coaches do this enough, but I kind of suspect that we don't do this enough as coaches, is pressing these teachers who are doing great things, pressing them to start presenting. Maybe there is a district level conference or opportunity to share for professional learning. Maybe there's a state level conference or even a national level conference. I have offered for teachers, we can co-present things together maybe on something that they've been doing, or just to step up as a leader in the school or in the district. Um, Here at the end of this school year, there's a teacher who was interested in taking on some leadership opportunities, and I helped her find some areas where I said, girl, you are so talented in this area and not everybody has that knowledge. This is what you should be sharing. This is what you should be doing. And so, and I said, girl, I was very, she's a friend level teacher too. I'm not that casual with all the teachers. But giving them kind of a confidence boost so that then they can lead, because that's really the greatest part of being an instructional coach, is being able to help build that leadership capacity in other teachers as well. So there's room at the table for all of these levels, right? To be able to bless teachers, to address particular skills, and then to press them onto the next level. So here's what I would like to ask you guys to do is I want for you to think about this. Hopefully you've had a few thoughts that you've been able to put in on your notes catcher here about bless, address, and press. I want for you to circle on your paper, even if you didn't take notes, or you can even think about if you didn't print it, which area of feedback do you feel most comfortable giving to other teachers? I want you to circle that on your paper, or make the mental note if you don't have it in front of you. And then I want for you to place a star next to the one that you would like to improve this year. So circle the one you feel the most comfortable with. Just already, you probably have a natural tendency in that area. Interestingly enough, I think that my natural tendency might be press, but I have to back that down because that's not a good place to start, because I'm going to share some tips about that, and press is not a great place to start. And then star the ones that you'd like to improve this year. So I'm curious, if you don't mind sharing in the chat, I would love to know first, what do you feel good about? Which of these is your natural tendency, do you think, that you're just kind of gifted in giving feedback in that particular area? We've got some positive people. I love that. The blessing. Yes. Okay. So Amy says that blessing seems easy and addressing seems difficult. I love how it seems like this is just a very positive group. Okay, a couple people have said that addressing seems harder. I completely understand that. And especially for you guys, as you're concerned about coaching in a position that you yourself didn't teach. One thing that I feel like I say to teachers a lot is, oh, that's a good point. I want to come back to that, Kimberly. One thing that I say to teachers all the time is that, you know what? Good teaching is good teaching, no matter the grade level. For me personally, I taught fifth grade, I taught kindergarten, I taught third grade. It didn't matter which of those I was doing, like the strategies that I can use, they're good strategies at any of those grade levels. And you know what? They're still great strategies, even at the high school level where I coach teachers now. And so I think good coaching is good coaching too, no matter what your grade level is. All right, feeling stuck with the addressing. So one thing that I'll say too is, and the books that I'm going to do a drawing for at the end, that one book, The Strategic Teacher, that one is very helpful, and I use that one a lot for going in and kind of making my checklist for teachers, kind of the guides for them for different strategies. And for you yourself as a coach, continue building your toolkit, because learning all of those strategies, learning a lot of those things. Oh, let's see. Somebody must have gotten kicked out. Let me add them really quick. All right. Now, there was one I said I wanted to go back to, and my brain missed it. Okay, yeah. So Kimberly said, blessing is easy, but also often seems very surface level to teachers. Yes. So that is where I really like that idea of using your teacher evaluation rubric, because I'll just say what I'm thinking. They will sniff you out. If they think that you are not giving genuine, praise and thoughtful feedback, they well, maybe this is a high school world too that I work with, but they want really specific feedback. So pulling in those evaluation rubrics, I just find that to be so very helpful. And just using the language that the rubrics use, that evaluators use, I think that that's really helpful. So I've got a few, I like to call things hot tips. Okay. So I've got a few hot tips for you about using this strategy of bless, address, and press. First thing is use bless, like just bless everybody, especially for those of you who are new to coaching this year, like new to a building, or even if it's a building that you've worked in, that's a whole other set of complications sometimes. But make sure that you are blessing teachers as you are building relationships with them. That's the thing that is just going to go such a long way. And maybe you don't even, maybe in your first few months, or even maybe I shouldn't say a time limit, but in your first couple times of visiting a classroom, maybe just kind of adopt a policy and keep in your own mind, I'm not going to give any feedback for the first couple visits except for just bless. And I'm going to be very specific. I'm going to be very intentional about that. One thing that I will say, where Kimberly, I think it was, said that it can feel very surface level. Here's a fun little strategy for you too, is when you're visiting a classroom and you're blessing a teacher with feedback, pick one particular thing that they have done, tell what you noticed, how students responded to it. So I might say in a classroom, I noticed that I was in the classroom and I saw this particular student was struggling, but then you pulled in the visual and you showed, X, Y, and Z, and explained it a different way. And then that student was able to answer the question that she was stuck on. Like that sort of thing where, and that's just off the top of my head, I hope I articulated that well, but picking one particular thing that you noticed the teacher did, notice how the student responded to it, and just giving that feedback can be very specific, and then tie it into the rubric that you're using, and even better, right? So that's my first hot tip, is make sure that you're blessing as much as you can to build relationships. Second, and this is something I do whenever I visit a teacher's classroom, I always just, I'm tracking, I do a little time tracker of like almost a script of what's going on. And then at the bottom, I always have strengths. So anytime that I notice the teacher doing something, I write out the strength. Or as soon as I leave the classroom, I'll review the notes immediately and I will start listing strengths. Make sure to just keep a running list whenever you're doing an observation, or on that same observations notes page, keep a running list of the strengths in the visit so that you will have something to share with them that is a strength no matter what comes up. Because I think that's my next one. Oh, no, that wasn't my next one, but I'll just go on that a little further in case I don't have it somewhere else. No matter what, always give some blessing in an evaluation follow-up, or not an evaluation follow-up, but an observation follow-up. Make sure that you give some positive and some blessings on that. All right. Here's the next tip, is when it comes to feedback, don't share everything. Again, I may or may not have learned this the hard way, where after an observation and going through a reflection with teachers, I just want them to know all the things that I noticed. And so I start rattling off, well, there's this, and there's this, and there's this, and there's this. I hope that someone else will chime in the chat to reassure me, experienced coaches, that I'm not the only one who made this goof early on. But don't share everything. Instead, just pick Pauline, you and I, like we're buddies. Lindsay, yes, you get it, right? Just pick what is the one, maybe two things that a teacher could do that is going to have the greatest impact on student learning. All right. That's the one piece of feedback to give them. Don't give them everything that you noticed, except for maybe the blessings. I do like to make sure and give them lots of positive reinforcement of things that I see them doing. But remember too, that even teachers who want to grow and want to improve, for everything that you point out to them, most of the teachers are going to take that as a form of criticism that they weren't doing something well. Even if it's just suggestion to take something to the next level, we want to make sure that we don't overwhelm them. We don't want them to shut down and not buy into the work that we are doing with them. All right. So just make sure, don't share every little thing. Just pick the ones that you're going to get the most bang for your buck. This next one is, this is my life, I guess, when I'm talking to teachers, is base your feedback on data. So the line that I say to my teachers all the time is that data, or data, I say it both ways, tells a story. All right. Data tells a story. And it is far better if you can share with teachers data on your classroom visit. Here's what I noticed happening, without any like telling your opinion on things. Just give data of what has happened and let the teacher come to their own conclusion. So for instance, the story that I shared earlier where I goofed and it was not a stellar moment as a coach for me. I think a way that I could have approached that differently with the teacher is to say with the teacher afterwards, what did you notice about, how students were progressing through the assignment and that sort of thing, and hear what she said. And then I would say, I noticed that there were 3 students who in that class period completely finished their essay. I noticed that there were 14 students who completed, let's say, their introduction paragraph and at least 2 body paragraphs. And then I noticed that there were 5 students who did not even complete the introduction paragraph. So that's what I noticed. Like, that's the data. I just gave the teacher raw numbers. What are your thoughts about that? Then that teacher could have taken it in a lot of directions. She could have said, oh, well, there are 3 students who finished the essay. I was going to give them another day of class time to work on that. I probably should work on having something in place for them to serve as enrichment for those students. Maybe she could have noticed, oh, those 5 students, maybe I need to have an extra support for them. Maybe they were really stuck on that. Maybe I need to pull them aside and work with them in a small group, something like that. Those sorts of things. Now, I've got another example for that is I've had the experience of being in a classroom and the teacher maybe wants me to address questioning. So in that case, like, I'm listing the types of questions that are being asked, or I'm tracking what students are answering. And there was one class that I went to and asked the teacher, okay, how do you feel about the questioning that you use? How do you feel about student engagement during the questions that you asked? And the teacher was like, oh, well, I mean, they answered all the questions and that was great. And I said, you're right. They did. I noticed, though, as I was tracking them and I showed some data, 2 students answered, it was like 80% of the questions being asked. And 2 other students answered several others. And there were like 20 kids in the room who never answered any question through the whole class period. Now, do you think I had to say to that teacher, yeah, you only have 2 kids answering questions in the class and the others are all checked out. You need to do something about that? No, the teacher saw that data and said, oh no, what's happening to those other 20 students? They got to come to their own conclusion about it. So I just harp on this. Base your feedback on data. Trust that your teachers, and sometimes you might prompt them a little bit, but trust that they're going to be capable of seeing that data and deciding something that needs to be done, even if it's not the thing that you would pick out necessarily. Let them come up with something based on the data, and then that gives you a great kind of benchmark moving forward too, if you decide to make that a goal in a coaching cycle or anything like that. All right, my hot tip that's next is to establish this preference in advance. So I think one tip that I would give is early on in my coaching career, I didn't get enough information from a teacher before I went in for a classroom visit. Honestly, I think I was just thrilled that they invited me, and I didn't want to take any of their time to ask any questions or, take any of their precious moments of planning time, anything like that. And so I would just get there and kind of start observing and kind of take a guess at what kinds of things I think I might lead the conversation to be about later when we reflected. And instead, now I am adamant that if I'm going to come in to your classroom and do any sort of observation that is going to require feedback from me, then I want us to have the conversation first. I want you to tell me in advance, which of these types of feedback would you like? And if you want something addressed, let me know what it is that you want to be addressed. One other advantage to this, and I'm going to talk about some benefits in a second, but just while I'm thinking about it, is one advantage to this is if you know that a teacher, maybe they are concerned about closure for their lesson. Maybe that's the thing that you want to look at with them, or that they want you to look at for them. That kind of gives you a little advanced notice, and you can start preparing. Go to your book like The Strategic Teacher, or do a Google search about best strategies for lesson closures or whatever it is, to just go ahead and prep yourself on some things that maybe you could look for, that you might collect data for, and you would then have that available for when that reflection meeting comes up. I just think that that's really helpful. Okay, so let's see. Oh, good question, Amy. If you only suggest blessed visits at the beginning or for first coaching, do you still give them the option? In that case, I might not. I might just, I just want to be in the very beginning, I want to be a very positive force in their lives. I want to not make them more anxious than they will be with just a stranger coming into the classroom. So I wouldn't give them that choice first. Maybe on the second or third time that I visit a classroom, then I might do that with a teacher. And I love it because I'm a creature of habit and routine. And I do the same thing with teachers so often that now some teachers, I don't even have to ask which one they want. Like, they just know, all right, Dowda, just come bless me. I just need you to come in and, just give me a pat on the back for something. Great. I would love to do that. So yeah, early on, just bless them all, bless everyone. But then after a couple of visits, that's when I would start upping your game a little bit. Do I warn early on? Can you tell me more about that question, Amy? And if it's easier to hop in and talk about it. Oh, do I warn them that I'm coming in? Yes, I absolutely let teachers know that I am coming in, and I think it's just a courtesy that I want to extend to teachers. I never want them to think that I'm coming in as a gotcha. And this is, I don't know, this isn't exactly like what all we're talking about with this, but I'm happy to talk about it. I want teachers to know that I am somebody that can be trusted, and I am always going to be their biggest cheerleader. And I will absolutely let them know in advance when I am coming, or at least a window of when to expect me. So yes, now that question makes sense. And I absolutely let them know when I will be there. I like your all's questions. So the other hot tip that I'm going to give is, it is absolutely okay to change course. If you get a read on somebody that, they wanted to be addressing something, or they wanted to be pressed about something, and you realize this is not being well received, go back to bless. Just backtrack a little bit, go to bless. You've already got your list of stuff from your classroom visit, right? And if you feel like you've made a mistake in that, in reading the situation poorly or anything like that, own your mistakes. It's so worth it to just tell a teacher, like I did to the one, hey, I just don't like where we left things. I feel like I should have said this, and I just want you to know, ooh, my dogs are excited. And I just want you to know, these are the things that I think you're doing really well. Like, it's always fine to go backwards like that. I love this quote. I love quotes just in general, but especially for coaching. Is success is rarely the result of one swell swoop, but more often the culmination of many, many small victories. I'll say, remember this for you first year coaches as well. Give yourself grace and time to adjust to things. But when you're working with teachers, just a couple of thoughts. One is, don't be discouraged. If you don't see them progressing as quickly as you would like, or there are going to be times during your coaching that you feel like the goals that they are setting for themselves are too small. Like, this is a simple goal. Why are we focused on this little teeny tiny thing? For that teacher, it may be monumental. Like, it could be further outside their comfort zone than they have ever stepped before. And it could also be the first step toward their next goal with you. It can snowball, right? So this is just, for me, this quote is a reminder to celebrate the small wins that you have in coaching with teachers, and just don't underestimate how important and how valuable those things are. Especially if you're in a situation where a teacher has never worked with a coach before, it's just so vulnerable for them. And so any little bit that they are giving you, assume that that is their best that they're giving you, and just, I don't know, just revel in that with them, and let a win be a win. Okay. Don't get in your own way with that. So just a few benefits to this whole bless, address, impress is benefits are, I shared with you in the definition of feedback, the learner needs to be in the driver's seat, right? If we can do bless, address, and press with teachers, then we are putting them in the driver's seat. They are directing where we are going. Do they want to be blessed? Is there something they want to address? Or, are they just, pedal to the metal and, going hard in whatever direction. All right. So putting teachers in the driver's seat is so beneficial. The next benefit is that it strengthens the teacher coach relationship. With you going in, especially with that blessing early on, with you going in there, it is going to build trust with that teacher. Also, when they get to choose which of these things they want to learn about, and you follow through with that, it shows that you are a person who does what you say you are going to do. So if a teacher asks for being blessed, and you might come up with different words, that's fine too, because sometimes that can sound kind of weird to say. But if they want to be blessed and you just give them the positive feedback and you don't throw in anything extra, that shows them that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. It just further establishes that connection. And then lastly, and for me, this is probably the greatest benefit, is that it relieves stress and builds confidence, not just for you as a coach, but also for the teacher. Think back in your classroom days of having somebody come in. You know what it's like to have visitors in your classroom, right? And so it just relieves stress for them, knowing that when you come in, you are looking for something in particular, and that is the feedback that they are going to get from you. So they don't have to stress about making an entire lesson perfect and just this amazing thing. So it also lets you as the coach not feel that pressure and that burden all the time of having to have, just everything ready to say, and having all the ideas and everything figured out. Like I said, too, it can also, if you pick something that you're going to address together, you can get a little bit of a head start, even going into that lesson, if it's something that you don't feel fully confident on giving feedback on yourself. So what I would love to hear from you all is, how will bless, address, and press help you this year as you're getting started? How does this idea of bless, address, and press help you get started with your year with coaching? Whether this is your first year going in, or maybe you've had a lot of years. I would love to hear from people who have lots of years of experience, and would be willing to share how this might be different than something that you've done before. relieves your mountain of stress. Oh, that mountain of stress, that speaks to my heart. I feel like I live with a mountain of stress. Gives a plan to build relationships and trust. Yes. Gives teachers options. Yeah. Clarity for the coach and the teacher. That's a great point. Gives choice. Yeah, it's all about student choice these days, right? Like, are we giving teachers choice in their learning as well? And in this case, we are. Yes, focusing your work. Focus is so important. Oh, focus on the data. I love that. Data is my friend. I want to get a t-shirt made, actually, that says data tells a story, because that's just kind of my tagline. I do lots of data coaching with teachers, a lot of data work that I love, and they know that now. That's been ingrained in them. So what I want for you guys to do then, thank you for sharing your notes there. I want for you to just take a minute and ask what stood out to you from this session and what challenged and encouraged you from this session. So just go ahead. I'll give you a second to take that note and to start thinking of that. While you're doing that, I will also point out that that previous question that I asked, how will bless, address, and press help you? One thing that I learned as an instructional coach was to end every teacher meeting by asking the question, tell me about how what we've talked about today is going to help you. And so just a couple little things about that. One is it puts on the teacher that they need to, give you something back. To ask them, tell me how this helped you, they are going to walk away, because we remember from meetings, we remember the very beginning, but the very end of a meeting is what sticks with us the most. Research tells us that. Psychology, world of psychology stuff tells us that. And so, not to say we're manipulating teachers, but we're using psychology, right, to ensure that they are going to um, have something that was helpful in our conversation. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of helping to ingrain in them, I am a source of help for them, and we're doing this together. So just a note about why I included that question, and that might be a little nugget that you want to use this year. One other piece that I just want to share is, if you are interested in feedback, if you are a nerd like me and you just enjoy reading and learning, there is a little extension here, an article that you can read called 7 Keys to Effective Feedback by Grant Wiggins, who is like a feedback guru. And there's a link there. You can click on it if you have the PDF open on your computer, or you can type in that URL, that little bit.ly, and that will take you there. So if you like to have an extension and want further learning, this is just an excellent article. And it's actually the article that I based the feedback professional learning that I did with teachers. I based it on this article. Oh, it's a great read. Brenda, you've already read it. I think it's excellent. I think it's really good. So if you are looking for more support, like I'm just throwing this out there, because for me as an instructional coach, the joke was with the people that I worked with, we were building the plane as we were flying it, because there was not an instructional coaching program in place when I went in, and we were just having to kind of learn on the fly, learn as we go. So if you are looking for more support for instructional coaching, I'm pretty excited. I have just published my first course for instructional coaches. It's Instructional Coaching Strategies Toolkit for Success. And so if you liked just this approach tonight of me talking and sharing in video form, I have a series of videos along with these handouts, much like the one that you have today, with just kind of a place to capture notes. Oh, thank you, guys are making my day. And then a little reflection, and just what I think are some helpful activities, so that you can see what it would include. I have 6 sessions. Each one has a video that varies. Some of them are shorter, like 30 minutes. Some of them are up to an hour and a half, and I've broken them into smaller sections, like 30-minute sections. But talking about first establishing the definition of coaching, because if you are new to coaching, you will quickly find out no two coaches do the same job. People will back me up on this. I'm 100% sure that everybody's role looks a little different. And so defining what coaching is and what your role is. Building relationships. I have a whole session on building relationships, not just with teachers, but also with administrators, because that's essential. Like, administrator support will make or break you as an instructional coach, I really feel like. So I have a whole session for that. I have a session on the first month. Like, I'm new to this job. What am I supposed to do? I spend a lot of time in that one on classroom visits, like not teacher meetings and like giving feedback and things, but just visiting classrooms for the first month. I like organization and I want things to be organized well. So I have a session on the logistics of coaching. And then, oh yeah, you get very little direction. Like no direction, none. At times, sometimes better than others. Session 5 is just about preparing for teacher meetings. So a whole series of work around just the different types of meetings that you can have with teachers, because there's not just one, there are lots of different types of teacher meetings. And then lastly, that big scary thing, coaching cycles. I have an entire session just on coaching cycles and suggestions for that. If that is something that you were interested in, just plugging it here, I have early bird pricing. It actually just went live today. I have early bird pricing through next Friday, August 4th. It is going to be $70 for this 7 hours of training plus some additional things. Each session also has an extension, so more that you can read and study if you want to on your own. Part of the Instructional Coaching Strategies Facebook group that I lead. Some side notes with that. But anyway, after next Friday, it's going to be $95. So if you are in your first year of coaching, also, I've met some teachers, guys who have been coaching like 5 or 6 years, and they say, I've never gotten any training. I still don't know really what I'm doing. That hurts my heart. This might be for those people as well. So anybody who just wants to feel more confident and feel like you're doing the right work in this very important role of instructional coaching, and it's a role that doesn't always come with a lot of guidance, I am going to drop that link in the chat here, just in case anybody wants that. And then I'm also in the background here, I'm getting things ready for picking winners for our drawing. All right, I've got a link in the chat. If that's something you want, also when I send out the replay, I'm going to have a link to that as well. So don't feel like you're going to miss anything with that. All right, let's see if my file is ready. I think it is. Okay. All right, so I think what I will do is I'm going to let the first person, I will let you choose if you would rather have the book. Each of these is probably, I don't know, they're between like $20 and $30 value, or if you would rather have the $10 TPT gift card. I'm happy to let people choose between those two things. So let me get my numbers all set up here. Let's see. Rachel Renrick, you get to choose which of those things. So if you want to let me know in the comments which of those things you would like. Would you rather choose one of those books or a TPT gift card? And you don't have to decide which book right now. Maybe I should have just assigned this. I'm sorry. Oh, TPT gift card. All right, Rachel, TPT gift card. I'm going to, if you'll stick around here in just a minute, I want to make sure that I have all your information. That'll be great. Woohoo. All right, next one. Somebody is going to get one of these books, which I have read them all. I love them all. Kimberly Shirk. Kimberly, you are going to get one of those books. Yay! So I cannot stress enough how much I really appreciate you guys. This is my first webinar that I have ever led live. And so I hope that you have gotten lots of value out of this. I hope that if you have not already joined the Instructional Coaching Facebook group, it's free. Head on over there, toss your questions in. I try and just be a supporter of instructional coaches because you guys are my people. All right. So stick around if you have any questions. If you have any live questions that you want me to answer, I'm happy to do that. I am going to stop recording now.